Hello everybody and welcome back to the Lowdown, and look who has joined myself and Mikey McCubbin today, the legend of Sky Sports, Mr. Paul Merson.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to the Lowdown, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good. Really good.
Glad to have you
Nervous.
on board.
Nervous.
No, it's a very nice show. It's a very nice show. Basically, guys, today we're going to get Merse to grade every major summer signing, actually from the season as well, some January ones thrown in there as well. Let's get into the player that was the most expensive summer signing last year, Dominic Solanke, £55 million from Bournemouth to Spurs. What have you made of him, Merse?
You know what? I thought it was a good signing when he signed, and I still believe it will be, but I don't think he's got to the heights he did at Bournemouth, in my opinion. I think it's been a bit stop-start. He was a bit nervous at first. It's different playing for Bournemouth and then going to a big club like Tottenham. So, I better things next season, in my opinion. I think he's got to get used to it. As I say, you're playing in front of 12,000 at Bournemouth, and then you go to Tottenham's new stadium. Pressure's on. Tottenham have got to win every game, and they're not very good, if that makes sense. So for me, I think he hasn't been able to handle that pressure as well as what I thought he would, but he will get better.
Okay, so you're not writing him off. I mean, he's missed, I think, 13 games with injury, but better to come next year.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I thought he was a good signing for Tottenham. I thought Arsenal could have probably got him, if I'm being honest, but at the moment, I don't think he's fulfilled his potential that I thought he would.
And if you had to give it a grade, F to A star?
I would go C. I would go C. I just think there's a lot more to come. I do like him. He's a good player.
Before we go on to the next player, then, you mentioned Arsenal could have signed him. Is there a particular striker this summer that you think Arsenal should be prioritising?
Well, if you look at all the strikers thereafter you've seen in the last couple of days, they're all 6'2". They're big players. Do you know what I mean? Big, tall, strong lads. So that's the way he's going down. I would have thought Arteta. I like Isak. I think if Arsenal got Isak next season, I think they win the league by 10 points, Arsenal. I think they absolutely walk the league.
Yeah.
Because I think from goalkeeper to defence to midfield is as strong as anybody's. They just haven't got anybody to do the hardest job in football, and that's put the ball in the back of the net.
Going to be difficult with the price tag that Newcastle put on him, but we'll see.
If you want to be successful, you've got to pay over the top sometimes, and Arsenal do need that. Do you know what I mean? They need a centre forward. But everyone they're looking for at the moment seems to be 6'2", so they're going to go for that bigger centre forward than little.
So moving on to a club that has also been lacking goals recently and has had some trouble in the forward line, Pedro Neto to Chelsea for £54 million. Another big signing. Also had a lot of Premier League experience at Wolves as well. Came with a big reputation. Started quite promisingly, but the goals haven't been there. What have you made of him so far this season?
I've been disappointed, if I'm being honest, but I think he's got to get used to playing at Chelsea. Again, we're talking like with Solanke, he's come from Bournemouth, where, no disrespect, but if Bournemouth lose, they lose. It's not that big a story, and it's the same here. I go Stamford Bridge. I'm a big Chelsea fan. Teams go and sit 10 behind the ball. He's not playing at Wolves on a big, massive pitch, and teams have a go at him, and he's got that pace and a lot of space. He doesn't get that space at Chelsea, and I think he's struggled this season. Plus, with the wingers at Chelsea, they got 3 or 4 wingers, and they swap them all the time. I think you need that run in the team, that longevity, and it's hard for wingers. Out of all the positions, I think the wingers are hardest, because you play with 2 wide players. One will get the ball all day long and will have so much of it you get fed up, and the other one won't touch it. And I think at the moment he's struggled, and I would have to give him a D at the moment. I think he's been disappointing. I'm not going to lie. I did like him at Wolves when he come back from his injury, but as I say, you're playing at Wolves, big Molineux pitch. Teams have a go at you. There's a lot of space. And he can use his pace. He can't really use that at Stamford Bridge on a small pitch where teams are sitting 10 behind the ball every week.
So do you think if Chelsea were to miss out on top 4, do you think that's what people are going to look back on, that the signing of Neto, the Sancho signing as well, and do you think that will be seen as the major mistake, or do you think there'll be other factors at play?
I think injuries. I think Jackson's got injured, but I think Sancho fits the bill, in my opinion. He's got that movement. He's good in tight spaces. And that's what you need at Chelsea. You need to put the ball through the eye of a needle. You need good feet. And it's not all about pace at Chelsea, because as I say, I go as much as I can. And teams sit 10 behind the ball and there's not a lot of room. And I think Sancho's a good signing. I do like Sancho.
Yeah.
Again, though, Mudryk, Sancho, Neto, Mudryk when he, before his ban, they were swapping and changing all the time. You need a run in the team. You need 10, 11, 12 games. Then you can see the player. But bringing him for 2 and then taking them out, bringing them in, it doesn't work for me, that.
Let's move on to a player that unfortunately got injured in their second game for Man United in Leny Yoro. And I think actually in recent weeks we've seen Ligt and Yoro really improve as the season's gone on. But it's been really challenging for Yoro, given that injury, to give him a particularly high mark, I imagine.
Yeah, I couldn't even really give him one, really. He's been absent, really, if I'm being honest. And he's had an injury. I think he was one for the future. I didn't think he was one that was going to come straight in and be a star at Man United. I thought he was one that would steadily come in. But he's come, when he has come into the team, they've been that poor, Man United, that sort of, and I don't mean this horribly, but everybody's sort of looking after their own job. And he's a young lad who needs, when you're a centre-half and you're a young lad coming from a different country going to probably one of the biggest teams in the world, you need someone next to you who's going to help you. And at the moment, everybody's trying to do their own job because they're struggling. And I think, I wouldn't really want to mark him. I don't think he's got started yet, if that makes sense.
I think that's fair enough. We'll give him an NA at the moment.
Yeah.
In terms of their forward areas, we saw Harry Maguire come off the bench last night against Nottingham Forest and ended up having 3 shots, which was more than Zirkzee and Højlund combined. Is it just that striker that if you were Amarin this summer, you'd be saying to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you've got to get me a striker?
I think they do need a striker because I don't think they make millions of chances. So they need that natural goal scorer who's a 1 in 2 chances. But they need 7 or 8. I just don't think it's, centre forwards are only as good as the players behind them. I always say Haaland won't get 60 goals at Rochdale. He won't, because he won't do it on his own. He needs people like Kevin De Bruyne and Foden and Silva and Doku and Grealish. And that's the problem at Man United. You look behind him, the wingers don't really put in crosses. They're more worried about cutting in and having a shot themselves. They never really dominate midfield. So whoever plays up front for Man United at the moment, it's a difficult job.
Speaking of players behind him, I think we'll get on to the next most expensive signing, but we may as well go to Manuel Ugarte in midfield. Another, unlike Yoro, someone who came in and was expected to really shore up that midfield, his defensive work rate at Sporting under Amorim and then at PSG, was his kind of defining characteristics. Given that, do you think we've been not let down, but do you think Ugarte's not lived up to his potential so far at United?
I could always make excuses for players at Man United a bit because playing in centre midfield, he's never really had a partner every time. I mean, you've got Fernandes in there who's a phenomenal player, but not really a midfield player, so he's going to go and do his stuff. Casemiro, it's hard. This is probably the hardest part of being a pundit, is having a go at players like Casemiro who've won everything in the game, but he's not been up to it. And, on a big pitch at United, they just seem so open. It doesn't matter how big an engine he's got. He can't do it all on his own. And at the moment, teams are going through him for a knife through butter. And he's nowhere near the player he was, that we thought he was going to come. And again, I think when Amorim gets the players around that he needs and he gets more legs in the team, I think then we'll see him shine.
So, I mean, certainly once they've got a proper right wing back alongside them, it feels like that midfield's going to be a bit more balanced as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's too open at the moment.
But how, so what grade would you give Ugarte?
I would have to give him a D. I just don't think I don't think he's got going at all. I'm trying to sit here now and think, when have I watched him and thought, whew, he's good. Do you know what I mean? And he is, because you don't play for the teams he played for. So for me, there's a player in there. They just got to get the balance for him to suit that sort of situation. And, I think, again, if Man United can get the player, he won't be one of the players that goes. When I say they need 6 or 7 players, he won't be one of them that goes, in my opinion.
Let's move on to Amadou Onana, who is a big money signing for Aston Villa, £50 million. Big outlay, and he's missed a number of games with injury. I think when he's been fit, he's been fairly solid. But in terms of what have you made of his performances, Paul? And then secondly, is there a factor that Villa are in a Champions League quarter-final? They've got an FA Cup semi-final to look forward to as well. But do they need to guarantee a certain league position for this season to be a real success, or do you think it already is?
Well, no, because if they were in the Champions League this season and they've done well, as you say, quarter-final and the semi-final of the FA Cup. The problem is, if they go and lose them 2 games against PSG and Crystal Palace and they end up finishing 9th in the league, people completely and utterly forget about semi-finals and quarter-finals. They need to get into Europe again, and that's the name of the game. I do like him. I think he's a powerhouse. He's a presence in midfield, and I think they have missed him. Because when he plays, and you've got John McGinn who can get on it and play, and there's a good balance in that midfield when he's playing, in my opinion. So I do like him. I would have said a B+ for him when he's fit, and he has missed games, but they have to get over the line, Aston Villa, and if they don't get into Europe and they don't win a cup, then for how great it is at the moment, come what may, it wouldn't be that great.
Our first really positive one so far. B+ for Onana. I like it. Mikey?
Next on the list, João Felix to Chelsea. Of course, it's already out on loan, but £42 million from Atletico Madrid. Of course, we have to caveat that with the fact that it was, essentially part of a deal where Conor Gallagher went the other way, but given that Samuel Omarodi had nearly signed from Atletico Madrid with Gallagher going that way and has now got 15 goals for FC Porto as well. Do you feel like that was a kind of sliding doors moment that has, almost cost Chelsea a more easy season in that sense, given Jackson's injury?
Maybe. I didn't get the Felix one. I didn't get it. He was at Chelsea before and he wanted to go, and then they bring him back. He wanted to go to Spain. So I didn't get that. Plus, Palmer was playing so well, I didn't see how he was ever going to get in the team. And that was another reason. Sometimes I wonder what's going on at Chelsea. It's like they're just buying every Tom, Dick and Harry. Do you know what I mean? Oh, he's a good player, so we'll buy him. Oh, he's a good player. You've got to weigh it up and think, right, where's he going to play? It's all right buying these top players, but he was never going to play in front of Palmer, even though don't get me wrong, he's a top player and he's done well in the Europa Conference. But I think I would have done well in the Europa Conference, and I'm 57. Do you know what I mean? Some of the teams we've played, Chelsea, I don't even know. I mean, I went to the Noah game. I mean, wow.
I mean, he's yet to score at Milan in eight games. He's yet to score or assist as well. So it's not like he's...
Milan fans unhappy with him.
It's not like he's suddenly
unhappy.
gone somewhere else and started playing super well.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I think certain places suit certain players. I think in Spain, I think that suits him. I just didn't get that one. I'll go E, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I'll go an E.
Probably
I don't see what he's done at all. And he is a top player. But it's horses for courses, and he just it wasn't a fit for Chelsea. As I say, he left before because he wanted to leave, and he's come back, and Palmer was playing out of his skin. So I didn't know. I didn't even know what the lad's thinking was in a way, where he probably thought, well, what am I going there for? I'm not going to get a game, unless he thought he was going to out Palmer, and I didn't ever see that happening.
Poor guy's just made a succession of poor career choices. Let's talk about your former club, Arsenal, and the player they brought in Calafiori, who had that amazing goal against Man City. There's been some injury issues there. And Lewis Skelly's emergence has made him less likely to play as a left-back as well. Do you think he's just been a bit unfortunate? Do you think there's a player in there for the future?
Yeah, I do like him. But that's what they need, Arsenal. They need 2 players in each position. And with Lewis Skelly coming through now, you're not worried about that position. You've got 2 top draw players, in my opinion, that can play there. And that's what you need. Arsenal next season need that to be successful, where I think too many times Arsenal have had injuries and had to bring players in and weaken the team. And I don't think that'll be the case in that position now. So I like him. I think he's a good player. I would say B. I don't think he's ever let Arsenal down when he's played. And he scored a couple of big goals as well along the way. So for me, he's a good signing. He's solid, and as I say, him and Lewis Skelly, whoever plays, they're not weakening the team at all.
I like it. I think that's very fair enough. And just quickly on Arsenal, we saw Gabriel go off injured last night. We saw Timber looking like he's got an injury. Ben White picked one up on Monday as well. How worried are you from an Arsenal perspective ahead of Real Madrid on Tuesday?
Without Gabriel, they're not ripping it up over in Spain. I mean, they got beat last night by Sociedad. They had to go to extra time and draw 4-4. So, the week before that, they were 2-1 down. I know they rested players and brought them on at half time. But over in Spain, the press think that's a 50-50 football match. But I just think without Gabriel now, I think I just thought if Arsenal could get it into a bit of a chess match, a bit cagey, I thought they had a chance. But without Gabriel now, if this game opens up into a bit of a gung-ho football match, I just don't see how all the goals in Real Madrid to all the goals in Arsenal, how Arsenal can win that. But yeah, Gabriel's a big miss. Saka's a big plus. But you need Gabriel as well at the same time. But I don't think there'll be as much in it as what people think there is. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all.
I think especially if it's Partey against Vinicius Junior playing at right back, that's really.
Oh
worrying.
yeah, no, that's a worry. That will be a worry. But then you got Saka, who then they'll have to worry about Saka. Then I think that's where it's a big advantage. And then you go, right, who's going to who? And I think Saka's come back fresh. Vinicius Junior's had a long season. Who knows?
Absolutely. And Martinelli starting to come into a bit of form as well.
Yeah.
Mikey?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Next up, we're going to Brighton. Georginio Rutter, club record signing from Leeds last year for £40 million. Of course, he went to Leeds just before they went down. He really was a kid back then. He's still only 22. Impressed last year in the Championship. At Brighton this year, 5 goals, 3 assists. Not a huge output, but a lot of goals spread around in that side as well. What have you made of him? And I mean, what have you made of the Brighton attack in general under Hertzler? A lot of injuries in there as well.
I like him. I do like him. I know you say they're 5 goals, 3 assists, but with this assist situation where people go assist, sometimes it's the ball before. He's always involved. He links the play up. He's an intelligent footballer. I like him. I'm a big fan of his. It does shock me with the 5 goals and 3 assists, but he would have been involved in a lot more goals. It might have been the pass that gives for the assist, that ball inside the fullback, cross, goal. People forget about that pass. I think that's got to come into it now. I think too many times we're assist, but it's the ball before the assist that's the one for me as well. And I think that goes under the carpet. And he's always involved. He links up. He's very unselfish. He's not a selfish footballer. He will come short and play. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. And, at a young age that he is, he's only going to get better.
Especially in that attack. It's just so many exciting young players in that attack. Danny Welbeck.
And then you got Danny Welbeck, who's playing out of his skin, probably playing the best football of his career. But that's probably because he's experienced and he's got very good players around him, good players that are willing to run without the ball. And that's what I like about Brighton. It's not always give it to my feet. There's always movement.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, actually, as well, how last summer they were one of the biggest spenders in the Premier League. And I was looking it up, I think 6 of their 7 most expensive signings ever came last summer. So it really felt like after a little bit of a down year before Hertzler came in under De Zerbi, they really felt like this was the year to invest heavily. And it seems to have paid off so far.
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's a disappointing result going out in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. I mean, they're still in with a chance of Europe. I watched them at Man City the other week and they were bang unlucky. I thought they were by far the better team, much better team. And, they ain't going away. I think there's sometimes you see teams like, and no disrespect to your Bournemouths and your Brightons that are lesser teams and they're up there and you think, oh, next season they won't. They'll be around. This is not a fluke. They've got a very, very good team. And I think if they can stay together, they will cause problems again next season.
And if you had to give Rutter a grade, what would you go for?
I'll go B+, definitely. Yeah, nice. I'm a big fan. Every time I've watched him play, he's always done well. He's always a handful.
Love it. Well, we've only got Merse for about 9 minutes more. He's got Soccer Special to get to, so we'll fly through a few more of these. Max Kilman, £40 million, Wolves to West Ham. He's had a lot of different centre-back partners, but West Ham's form hasn't really picked up too much since Graham Potter's arrived. Have you been surprised by that, and how have you rated Kilman?
I like Kilman. I think he's a decent centre-half. The problem is at Wolves, they played sort of on the counter-attack, so you're sitting deeper. There's not a lot of grass behind you. It's a lot easier to defend when you're that big and balls are coming in, you're blocking, heading. When you're at West Ham and they're an in-between team. They don't counter-attack, but they don't dominate games. But they're still quite wide open at times, and I don't think that helps him. And again, if you're playing with a different partner week in, week out, I do like him. I think he's a good leader. I think he will be better next season again. I think, again, he's gone from Wolves to West Ham where there's not much between them at the moment, no disrespect. But there's so much more pressure to win at West Ham than what there is at Wolves, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? And there's only one position between them in the league. But when you turn up at West Ham on a Saturday, you're expected to win. When you turn up at Wolves, if you win, it's great. And I think you have to get used to that as a professional footballer. And I do like him, and I think if he can get a solid defender, maybe a free at the back for me with Kilman. Do you know what I mean? On a solid free at the back, and I think he'll be all right. I give him B-, and I will give him B- because I've never seen him get run ragged. Do you know what I mean? I never watched West Ham and go, "Phew, he's had a shocker." Do you know what I mean? It's sort of the players around him, in my opinion, and he's a worker as well. He always gives 100%. Even when they're struggling, West Ham, he never hides. He's always there. He's always there for the battle.
Love it. 6, 7 out of 10 every week. Mikey, next player?
Absolutely.
Yeah, more than 6, 7.
Let's go 7.
You know what?
Let's go 7. Paul Merson says 6 out of 10.
No, 7 out of 10. Solid.
I guess another player who's came in with a even bigger reputation to Man United, Matthijs de Ligt, £43 million from Bayern Munich. Again, in a team that defensively has looked looked pretty shaky at points this season, but has grown into this season. I think they are a bit more solid, under Amorim now at least. What have you made of de Ligt? Did you have as high expectations as maybe some others did when he came in, or
not really? And I say that he was at Bayern Munich, phenomenal football club, sold him. Something tells you there's something cut. When you get if you've got a top centre half and you're at one of them top clubs, you don't let them go. Do you know what I mean? And he's been twice now, and I just find that strange. And I don't think he's been as dominant as what he has. I think sometimes he sort of dives in. Every club he's been to have just dominated. He's probably sat at the back. He's probably had a bit to do here and there, and he's built that reputation up and probably been better than what people thought he was. Now all of a sudden he's at Old Trafford, and he's getting no protection in front of him, and people are running left, right and centre, and he's a little bit lost at the moment. I think, as you're right, I think he's got better as it's gone on, but I think that's took him a bit of time. Because, as I say, when he was at all them clubs, they just dominated their games, and you're sitting at the back with a bit of a cigar on, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, fair. So what would you give him?
I give him a C. I give him a C. I think he'll get used to it. He's getting used to it now that, it's not like other clubs where, as I say, he hasn't had a lot to do.
Another new incoming at Man United was Joshua Zirkzee. Just 3 league goals. I think he looks like a brilliant footballer, but not necessarily the number 9 that they were hoping for. Is that kind of your take on him? And do you think he's worth persisting with, or would he be someone you'd be looking to move on this summer and bring in that really high quality centre forward?
Yeah, I didn't get that one. I didn't get it. Again, you're coming from Bologna, where you're playing in a position where you're playing up front and teams have a go at Bologna. So there's always going to be space for him. Do you know what I mean? And, and you're going to nick goals here and there. I'd like to see his goals where how many of them have been winning goals or an equaliser or putting them in front, because sometimes that gets covered over by you're at Bologna and you get 10 goals and you've just got beat 4-1, but you scored in the last minute and things like that. I'm not a biggest fan of him. I'm not his biggest fan. I think when he does play, he doesn't really take care of the ball, in my opinion. He's a bit of a one-touch player, flicks balls, and you can do that at Bologna. And if it doesn't work out, you're playing next week. You do that at Old Trafford a couple of times, the crowd are on you, and then you're not playing the following week. So it's a bit of an hard one for me because as you said, he's a good footballer. He might be one of them, if you do let go, he could haunt you. And I mean, if you let him go somewhere and he does well, you think, why didn't you give him that extra year? But at the moment with Man United, they're all struggling. They're all struggling at the moment, and that's the problem at Man United. So I'd give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'd give him one more year, because when you're going from Bologna and you're going to Man United, it's chalk and cheese, and that's no disrespect to Bologna, but Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and everybody seems to have gone there when, at the moment, Man United are not very good at all, and that's the problem, and I think everybody's struggling.
And if you had to do a grade?
I go D. I don't really know what he's done yet, really, for Man United. I haven't watched him and thought, wow, that you were good. It's just hasn't. It looks like he's overwhelmed at the moment. It looks like he's a bit. Should I be here? And I don't think, when you're like that, hopefully you get his confidence up next season.
Let's move on to a January signing actually now, and somebody left Old Trafford. Very, very talked about move, a very protracted move. He was well, Marcus Rashford, he was linked with Barcelona of all clubs as well in January, ended up at Villa. What have you made to his start to life at Villa Park? Of course, scored, big brace on the weekend in the FA Cup as well.
Against Preston.
Well, yeah.
No disrespect to Preston, but it's Championship.
Yeah.
I expect Villa to wipe the floor with Preston. The Premier League to the Championship's chalk and cheese. I mean, it's a different world in my opinion.
But compared to this player who was seemed completely out of confidence at Man United, do you think this is a good career move for him? And then for Villa, do you think it would be worth them investing the money in a permanent transfer in the summer? Big wages as well, of course.
You don't mind paying big wages when players perform. If they perform, the clubs are getting it, so it's not a problem. I'd wait and see. Yeah. I'd wait and see. I think I like Marcus Rashford. I think he's a danger. It's a big pitch at Villa Park. They're a good team. The problem is the only player I know in the world who can have one unbelievable season and then next season be so bad and then be so good again the following season and then so bad the one after. I mean, it's unheard of. I've never known anybody like that. The one thing you just mentioned there, and I think that's the be and end all for any footballer, confidence. He's got confidence now. They're giving him the ball. He's not at Man United where the pressure's on, they're struggling. He's gone into a very good team. I like the coach. I like Emery. I think he's a top manager, and I think he's helping him as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kept him. I wouldn't be surprised at all because he's a top draw player. If you can get him going week in, week out, and get his confidence up, you're talking top player, top player.
Yeah. So what would you give him?
I give him B plus at the moment. Yeah. I give him B
pretty
plus.
Positive.
Yeah. I think he has. I think Asensio's helped him. If I'm being honest, I think, and people are giving him the ball quickly, and they're playing with confidence, Villa, and it's rubbing off. And he's only going to get better. He won't get worse at Villa, whatever happens.
Yeah, nice.
Paul, thank you so much. I know we've got to hand you back to the soccer special team, but that was awesome. I wish we could have had you for even longer. Guys, let us know in the comments what you thought about Merse's grades. Get your own thoughts in there too, and we'll catch you next week on The Lowdown. Bye-bye.